By grace we are saved through faith, not of works. We are created to do good works. For review, control and power. Some say the Roman Catholic Church forbade the population from owning or reading the Bible. In doing so, they enhanced their own power and importance by controlling and restricting the teachings, including concealing the Jewish foundation of Christianity and the Jewishness of Jesus. It does not take much of a change in Scripture to cause deception and disobedience. Thick-mouthed Satan changed the words that God spoke in the garden. Has God really said, "You shall not"? The woman said to the serpent, "God has said, 'You shall not, lest you die.'" The serpent said, "You won't really die." And in tempting Yeshua, Jesus, he changed the context of what God spoke. "Cast yourself down, for it is written, 'His angels will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone.'" With control of the Scriptures, it would have been easy for the Roman Catholic Church to manipulate their practitioners into believing select passages meant certain things. Why would a God who was concerned that things be done decently and in order suddenly be unconcerned and lackadaisical about whether and when people gather to worship him? What if those presumed anti-Sabbath verses really are talking about something else, something other than keeping the weekly seventh-day Sabbath day? What if they've just been misused by the enemy to deceive us? Is not the enemy great at twisting the words of God for his own purposes? Let all things done be decently and in order. One person esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. He who observes the day observes it to the Lord. He who eats, eats to the Lord. He who does not eat, to the Lord he does not eat. The devil said to him, "Throw yourself down, for it is written, 'They shall give his angels charge over you, and in their hands they shall bear you up.'" The devil does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks what is natural to him, for he is a liar and the father of lies and half-truths. Since Rabbinic Judaism is steeped in additional observances that are not in the Bible, what if the passage in Colossians had more to deal with the specific ways certain days are observed? After the tradition of man, the handwriting of ordinances, in some points observing an holy day or of the Sabbath days. Why are ye subject to ordinances after the commandments and doctrines of men? Since Rabbinic Judaism encouraged its practitioners to fast weekly on certain days, what if the passage in Romans had more to deal with which days to fast and not with which days to worship? Another regards every day. He who observes the day observes it for the Lord. He who eats, eats for the Lord, since he gives thanks to God, while he who abstains from eating for the Lord, and gives thanks to God. If the word used for Sabbath in the Hebrew is not translated as week, why is the word used for Sabbath in the Greek sometimes translated as week? What if the times when these words are translated as week instead of Sabbath, it takes us further away from the understanding of how the resurrection of Jesus fulfills the first fruits offering? Is first day of the week what these scriptures really say, or might they be more correctly understood if translated as something like, "on the first day of the counting of the Sabbaths"? Now in the end of the Sabbath, at the dawning toward the first day of the Sabbath, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And after the Sabbath, in the shining forth to one of the Sabbaths, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to behold the tomb. And very early on the first day of the Sabbath, they come to the tomb, the sun having risen. And very early in the morning of one of the Sabbaths, they came to the tomb, the sun having risen. And having risen early on the first day of the Sabbath, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. And having risen early the first of the Sabbath, he was manifested first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast 7 demons. But on the first day of the Sabbath, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they prepared. And in one of the Sabbaths, in the depth of the dawn of the day, they came to the tomb, bringing spices which they had prepared, and certain with them. Now on the first day of the Sabbath, Mary Magdalene comes early in the morning while it was yet dark to the tomb, and sees the stone taken out of the tomb. And in one of the Sabbaths comes Mary Magdalene in the morning, there yet being darkness, to the tomb, and sees a stone taken away from the tomb. When therefore it was evening on that day, the first day of the Sabbath, and when, through fear of the Jews, the doors were shut where the disciples were, Jesus came and stood in the midst, and said to them, Peace be to you. Then it being evening in that one day of the Sabbath, and the doors shut where the disciples were gathered together for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in the midst, and says to them, Peace to you. What if the times when these words, translated as week instead of Sabbath, leads us away from some other biblical truth? I fast twice of the Sabbath. I pay tithes of all I possess. I fast twice on the Sabbath. I give a tenth of all that I acquire. According to one day of the Sabbath, let each of you put by himself, treasuring up that which he is prospered in, that when I come there be no collections. On the first day of the Sabbath, let each of you lay by him, treasuring it up as many as he may prosper, that no collections be made when I come. And in one of the Sabbaths, the disciples having been assembled together to break bread, Paul conversed with them, being about to go forth the morrow, and he continued the word until midnight. And on the first day of the Sabbath, we, having come together to break bread, Paul was discoursing to them, being about to depart on the morrow, and continued the discourse until midnight. They say knowledge is power. The Roman Catholic Church, in controlling who received scriptures and what was said in those scriptures that were distributed, gained power and influence over the people's religious practices, finances, families, and more. There is notable potential for much bad to be done when religion, separated from God, has that much control and power. So the Bible urges families to teach their children scriptures in every situation, which means the parents must know, which means church leaders are not to withhold scriptures nor their proper interpretation from individuals. Look for yourselves, set aside these doctrines and biases of men. Think for yourselves. Hey, we're still learning, and we welcome suggestions and corrections. Pause for sources before continuing. Desire truth, seek wisdom, and love God in spirit and in truth. Be blessed.